So I've just started the recording, and today is our 17th class. So what we are going to do today is till yesterday we have used the SOAP UI mostly for the SOAP requests, right? So today we are going to see how can we do the things for REST requests as well. So today we are going to focus mostly on the REST request. So we'll take some example of the REST APIs and we are going to test those through the SOAP UI, and also we are going to validate the responses. We are going to assert the responses. Yesterday, the assertions we have already seen. How can we use the properties values in case of SOAP request and responses? So today we are going to see the same, but we will take REST APIs into the consideration. Okay. So I'll just start the screen sharing. Okay, so I hope my screen is visible.
Yes.
Okay. So what we are going to do is we will create a REST project first. Okay. So, and I need to provide the URI here. So what we are going to do is we will use this https:// www.qres.in. So this has created the REST project. So I'll just first rename it. I will rename it to REST APIs. Okay. So this has created the project for us, right? And under that we have the WADL, because in case of the SOAP APIs, it is called WSDL, but in case of REST APIs, this is called WADL. So do you remember the full form of WSDL or WADL?
Web Service Directory Language.
WSDL is Web Service Description Language. And WADL is Web Applications Description Language. Okay. So,
can you show that step again? First, you went to the REST project.
Yes. First, I clicked on the create a new REST project, and then it will ask you for the URI. Okay, you give the URI, so this will be created. So once it is created, then you can just right click on the project name and click on.
How do you give that URI?
So the URL you will get, so that depends on the application, what application you are going to test. So here, let me just show you. So this is the application we are going to use. This is a dummy application, right? So REQRES, this is the application, and this is having a set of different calls. I had already shown you this. So this is having a set of different methods which you can actually use to get the responses back, and then we can validate those. right? So initially the URI is this, and then there are several other endpoints. So what are the endpoints? Endpoints are basically this particular method specific request URLs, right? So that we need to add there. Okay. So let's just use this one, which will list our users. Okay. So yeah, so I'll open the SOAP UI again. So you remember I said to you that this particular endpoint is also called as resource. So these are different resources, right? So here we need to give the resource details. So this is slash API slash users each equal to 2, right? So this is the hello. Yeah. So this is the request which I am passing it in the resources, right? So now if I execute it, and this is the get call, okay? And I go to JSON, I just execute it. Why is it not giving us anything? Okay, sorry, that's my mistake. Let's just copy it from here and paste it. Okay, I guess now it should work. Yes. See, we are getting the same response, right? Okay. So this is one method. So let's rename this request. Uh, this is get list of users, and this is for page 2, right? Fine. So we are getting the list of the users from page 2 here. Okay. Now let's just rename this as well. Fine. Now let's create another resource. Okay. And here we are going to use the page 1. Right. So this is created. Fine. Now let's rename this as well. So this will be get list of users underscore page 1. Fine. And this is fine. We can rename this as well. This is our get underscore method 1. and this will be our get underscore method 2. Fine. And this will be list users from page 1. Okay. So we have two different methods created here. And if I execute, so I'm getting this. This one I need to change. Okay, so this is the second method and this is the first method. Fine. So now what we are going to do is we will create some properties. Okay. So how do you create the properties? What are the different levels of properties? Do you remember? We yesterday did that.
I don't know.
So there were 4 levels where we had created the properties. The first one was at the project level, right?
Then test case, test scenario.
So first the project level, then the test suite level, then the test case level, and then the step level. So this is our project. So we are going to create our first properties here at the project level. So what I'm going to give here, I need to be here in the properties pane, and here I will give the page 1. Okay, and the value of page 1 is 1. I'll add another one. I'll name it as page 2 and the value will be 2, right? So now I can use these two values here. So if I use that property, if I want to use that property, so I need to write dollar and opening and closing braces, then hash project hash page 1, right? This is how we use the properties. Click enter, and now if I run, so this is working. I'm getting the value 1 here, right? Okay. Now let's open this one. So see, here also the value is hard coded, right? But we can use the properties value here as well. So what you can do, hash, dollar, opening and closing braces, and then uh, hash project and hash page 2, right? So now if I run it, so again we are getting the page 2, right? Okay, fine. So now let's create the test suite from here, right? So right click on this WADL and click on generate test suite. Okay, so it will be created, one test case for each resource will be created, and we want to create the uh, test cases for these two resources, right? So I'll just click on OK. We need to give the name of the test suite. So let's just give it like test underscore best project underscore test suite. Okay. So this has created the test suite for us, right? Okay, fine. So we have the test case here. This is the test case 1. This is the test case 2. And the test steps are underneath those test cases. So these are the test steps we are having. Fine. So let's just run it first. So this is our test suite. If we execute it, so all those two are getting passed. This is the sequential execution. We can also do parallel execution. So if I click this and click here, so everything is getting passed as of now, right? And if I open it, go to JSON, so this is the thing we are getting here, representation, and we are getting the 200 status code as well. This is the header values and all. So for this one as well, these are all the header values that are going, and we are getting 200 as well here. Okay. So now the next thing will be to add the assertions, right? So let's do it for this one first. Okay. So the first thing we can do is we can click here and say we'll be going to property content and contents. So contents is basically whatever value we'll give here. So it will check that in this response whether that value is present or not, right? So what we can give here, we give something like say this will be the details of page 1, right? So what I'm giving is something like this one, page colon 1. So this is the thing is written here. And we can also give ignore case in comparison. So if we give it and if we write it here like page 1, so it will be passed. Okay, why is it failing? copy it from here and paste here. So I think it's checking only this thing. Let's just give the email ID then. So it's George. Yes, now this is passing because this particular response contains this mail ID, right? Now, what you can do, you can give it in caps as well. So if you are giving it in caps and you are not clicking this ignore case in comparison, then it will fail. Why? Because this particular value is not present here, right? So yeah. So if you click on this ignore case in comparison, then it will pass because it will not match, it won't match the cases here. So now it's passing. So this is the pretty simple assertion that we had already seen throughout these 3 days. Now what we can do, we will try to see these 4 other options, which are JSON path count, JSON path existence match, JSON path match, and JSON path regex match. So till now, if you have noticed, like for the SOAP related APIs, we were getting the XML response, right? But for this REST APIs, we are getting the response in JSON format. So what is the difference? Difference is, let me open the this one. So this was the SOAP API, and if I run it, so I get it in this format. So this is the XML format. Okay, I'll just add some values here, set 10 and 15. And now if I run it and I go to XML, so the response that we are getting here, this is in the XML format. Okay. And this is the JSON format. So there is a difference between these two. So in case of SOAP APIs, we will always get the response is in XML format. But in case of REST APIs, we can get the response in both. We might get the response in XML format, or we can get the response in JSON format as well. Okay. So now we want to validate different things. We want to add different type of assertions here. Okay. So the first thing that I will do is I'll open this one as well, and I will add some assertion here as well. So what I'm going to do, I will add one contains assertion, and here the mail ID is different. So I will just add that. It's Michelle Lawson at the rate request.in. Okay, and I will ignore the cases, click OK, and the session is passing. Fine. Now, when we are getting this JSON response, so maybe you want to test that how many data nodes are there. So each of this block is called a node, because see, in the data section we have different users, right? These are all individual users. This is one user detail, this is another user detail, this is another user detail. So in the similar way, we are getting the user details of 6 users. This is the first, this is the second, this is the third, this is fourth, this is fifth, and this is sixth, right? So we are getting the details of 6 different users. So now, in the similar way, you want to validate that while testing that actually we are getting the 6 user details or not. So there are two ways. The first way is you come and see this particular response, and then you go through the response and you manually see that whether 6 user details are there or not. But there is some other way of validating the same as well. What is that? Let's see. So we need to go to assertion. We need to add one assertion here. We will go to property content, and there is one thing called JSON path count, right? So this will give you the count of how many nodes are there. So let's just click it and add it. So now it's asking me to give a JSON path expression. Okay. So what is this JSON path? That we need to see now. So if you remember yesterday when we were using the property transfer, right? So in the property transfer, what we did, we used the X path. Do you remember? To get the value from the response of one property, we had written some X path, and then we used that to paste it to the request of another request using the XPath as well. So I'll just show you that. Where did we keep it? This is the transfer calculator, and here this was the transfer step that we added. So see here, if I open, we were using the path language as XPath. So XPath is nothing but XML path. So this is the XML path that we were using yesterday. Fine. So we'll use the similar concept, but here it will be JSON path. Okay. Here it will be JSON path because in case of SOAP API, we were getting the response in XML format. But here in case of REST API, we are getting the response in JSON format. So now we need to know how can we write this JSON path. So for that, we have some tool. I'll just show you that. So before that, I'll just copy this whole response. Whatever response I'm getting, I'll just copy it. Now I'll go here, and there is something called JSON path finder. Okay. Here. So the first option that we are getting, JSON path finder, we need to use that. So here you need to paste your whole response body. So whatever I have copied from there, I have pasted it here. And as soon as I paste it here, see, this is giving me, this has actually parsed it. This has broken down the response body, and now I have all the node details. So the page is here and the value is 2, then per page the value is 6, then total value is 12, total pages value is 2. Then we have the data node. Under the data node, there are different nodes, right? So we can actually maximize it. So under here you can see it is giving me 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it starts, the node number starts from 0. So as we have 6 different user details here, it is giving me 0. So 0 means this one, the first one. Then the 1 means the second one. So now if I expand it, you will see ID 7. So this is the first one. Email, first name, last name, and avatar. So all these details are parsed here, right? And now if I want to get the XPath of this thing, Suppose I want to get the XPath of this ID. So when I click on ID, it will give me the XPath, data0.id. If I want to get the XPath, no, it's not XPath, it's JSON path. If I want to get the JSON path of this after, so suppose this is the user ID and I want to get the JSON path of this after. Okay. So in that case, I need to just click here and it will give me the JSON path here. So in this way, we can actually find the JSON path and then we can use it here. Okay. So now the first thing that we want to check here is whether we have 6 different users details or not. So for that, what we can check whether there are 6 different IDs or not, right? Whether this ID is present 6 times or not. So for that, what we can do, we can write dot ID. And now if I click on this select from current, it is giving me 6, right? Now suppose I say dot data, what does it give? It gives me 1 because data only one node is there. Suppose I want to check total underscore pages. So this is only present once, right? This total pages. So if I select from current, it will give me 1. And now suppose I'm giving the value 2 here and I test it. So it is failing because actually it is present. This total underscore pages is one time present, but as we are validating it with value 2, it is failing. If I give the value 1 and test, this will pass, right? It is giving success. Okay. So what we are trying to do, we are trying to validate that whether this ID is present 6 times or not, right? So if I test it, it will fail because actually it is present 6 times. So now if I give 6 and I test it, so this is success. So this is adding the validation that whether this ID is present 6 times in the response or not. I'll just save it and this assertion will be added here. Okay. So similarly, we can go to our other call, and here also we have the 6 different IDs of 6 different users. So what I can do, I can actually add one JSON path count, and here we are not going to validate the ID. So we are going to validate the first name. So whether this first name is present 6 times or not, right? So if I do select from current, this gives me the value 6. And if I test it, yes, it is a success. First name node is present 6 times here. So I can save it. So we have 2 assertions present here and 2 assertions present there as well. Now we want to also validate that when we are validating with page 1, right? The page 1, we are not getting the values of page 2 here, right? Because in page 2, we are getting the values of these users. So this user details should not come in the values of page 1. So for that, what we can do, we can go to page 1 and first we'll go to page 2 and suppose this particular mail ID. So this mail ID is present in the response body of page 2, right? Now in case of page 1, we want to validate that this particular text should not be present in the response body. So for that, we can use not contains. If I click here and if I click here, I'll ignore case in comparison. So it will validate that this particular response body doesn't contain any value with this. Okay, if I click OK, so not contains is valid, right? Now similarly, I will also add this one in here in the page 2. So I will validate that this particular response should not contain this value, and I will ignore the case as well. Click OK. So not contains is also valid. Okay, so this is done. So now let's just run it from the test suite level once. If we run it, fine, everything is getting passed for now. All the assertions are getting passed. Great. Now we'll validate that whether we are getting the correct response code or not. For that, you can go to compliance and we'll select the valid HTTP status code assertion, and we'll validate whether we are getting 200 success code or not. Click OK, and this is also passing. At the same time, we want to validate that whether we are not getting any kind of error code which are related to failure. For that, we can select invalid HTTP status code. So for the valid ones, we'll select valid HTTP status codes. For the invalid one, which should not be present, we are giving it here. So suppose 400, 401, and so 402, then 500, 501, 502. So these are the error codes in case of failure, right? So if I click OK, so these error codes are not present here. Fine. I can add that here also. I'll go to assertions, click plus, I'll go to compliance status and standards. Then I will select invalid HTTP status codes. And here I can give the error codes. Right? This error code should not be present in the response. Yes, these are not present. I can also add 200 as the valid status code because this should get passed. So when I give 200, I press OK. So yes, 200 we are getting here, right? Okay, fine. So let's just check one thing. I will for now, I'll just, remove this one and I'll say page 3. Do you have the details of page 3? Let's check it. Run it. Yes, we have the page 3, but we don't have any user data here, right? And as we don't have any user data, this data is blank. So that's why it doesn't contain George, this mail ID, right? And also see the first name, this is not present here because we don't have any user data. So that's why it is also failing, because the expectation was this first name should contain 6 times here, right? That's why this is failing. Another thing we can see, if we give some random value here, what will happen? Let's just execute it again. This is, they have done it in other way. Okay, what if we give star? But then also they are sending the page 1. Okay. What if we give them? Okay, so they actually have not, you know, uh, developed or handled the error cases. So that's why whenever you give any particular value here, so they are returning something like uh, the users from the page one itself. So they
Mhm.
can't validate this. They have not provided or they have not handled those cases. They are simply returning the details from the page one. Okay. So now the first thing that we have seen from here is a JSON path count. So do you understand what is the JSON path count here?
Only what you showed you first.
Sorry.
I don't know what is JSON path. What you show is what I'm following.
So JSON path I showed you, right? From here
Yeah,
we
you
can get,
showed me, but what?
your voice is not coming.
Yeah, you showed me what is JSON path, but I really don't understand JSON path.
So JSON path is basically to the path to find this different nodes. So these are all different nodes, right? So how to identify those nodes? So that is called JSON path. So this is a JSON response. This format is called a JSON format. Okay, the total format is called a JSON format. Now, the, from this JSON response to get different nodes address, we can use the JSON path. So that is the JSON path. Now suppose I want to get the JSON path of this URL. So there is another node which is called support, and under the support we have the URL. So if we want to get the JSON path of that, there is support here. Click here, then you have URL and text. So if you click here, you'll get the path of URL or path of text. So we'll come here. Okay, so from the next assertion, I think you will be able to understand that. Okay, so suppose we want to validate that whether this particular email or this particular first name contains the value George or not, because there are different first name here, right? But we want to validate that the first user ID, the first name of the first user ID is George, because this George could be what we have validated here. If we open this contents, so we are validating that in the full response, this particular mail ID is present or not. So it could be present here or it could be present here as well. So if the george.bluth@recurrence.in, if this is present here, in that case also, this assertion will get passed, right? Because this is validating in the whole response. In the whole response, if we have this george.bluth@recurrence.in, it will say that your assertion is passed. But now what we want to validate, we want to validate that the first user's email is george.bluth@recurrence.in, or the first name of the first user is George or not. Okay, so to check that, what we need to do, we need to add one assertion, and the assertion will be JSON path match. Okay, JSON path match. So if I select it, so again it will ask me to give the JSON path expression. So here what we are trying to do, we want to get the data dot. Okay, so the first thing is, in the data section we have 6 different users, and I want to get the first user details. So if you see here under the data, we have 6 different users, right? And the first user is denoted as 0. So if I select it, this give me data 0. So to get the details of the first user, we need to give data 0. Now I want to get the details of, say, first name of the first user. So I need to give first underscore name. And now if I click on select from current, see, this automatically gives me the value George, right? This value. If I test it, yes, the test is success. Now, if you give here, say George 1 to 3, and you test it, it will fail. The assertion will fail. So this will actually check whether path that you are giving, whether the value what is there in that path is matching with the value that you are giving to it, right? So if the first name now changes to something else, this particular assertion will fail. Okay. Similarly, what we can do, we can add another assertion. And now suppose I want to validate that the email ID of this sixth user should be this one, right? So for that, I will just go here. I'll copy. Okay. I will go here. I'll copy the mail ID from the second page. So this is the second page. The Open SOAP UI. I'll go to the second page request, right? I execute. So this is the rachel.howell@recruiters.in. This is the sixth user, and I have copied the same, I guess. Yes, rachel.howell@recruiters.in. Fine. So now I want to assert that whether this email of the sixth user is correct or not. So again, I'll go and select JSON path match. Here, what I need to give. So as this is the sixth user, so the data value should be 5, right? Because it starts with 0, right? If you see 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the 5 gives the sixth user details. So I'll give data 5 and then dot what I need to give email, right? And now if I click on this select from current, so see, this is coming. This is the mail ID of the sixth user. And if I click save, so the assertion is added, right? And now if I go to the test suite level, if I click on execute, oh, sorry. If I go to the test suite level, if I execute, so yes, these are passing. Now suppose yesterday they have made some changes, and that's why there is some error, right? There is some error. Now earlier what you have done, you have the JSON path match. Suppose previously the value was not George, it was suppose Henry. So Henry was the thing that was coming earlier, right? So you had the assertion with the details Henry here. So just click on save. So earlier it was passing, but now it's coming as George, right? So when you run the test suite, this one will fail. Now you can go here and you can see why is it failing. So this gives you that comparison failed for path data 0 dot first name, expecting Henry, actual was George. So at that time you can validate, okay, so earlier it was coming as Henry, now it is coming as George. So is there any issue in the application? Is there any bug in the application? Then you can check that with the developer, and if possible you can raise the bug as well, that it is expected that it should come as Henry, but now it is coming as George. So the data that was coming earlier, that has been changed. So please tell me why this has been changed. Is there any particular requirement of that or not? Right? In that way, you can test
How
all
will you
this.
put that requirement? You'll send an email?
Sorry.
How will you let the developer know? You send an email?
So you can have a quick call with him, or else you can have the uh, uh, communication through mail as well. And otherwise, like if you just want to go, because this is failing, which was passing earlier, you can just simply go ahead and log a bug as well. So once you log the bug, it will be assigned to the developer, and all the communication will go through that bug. Okay. So yeah, so the main two assertions, there are mainly four assertions related to this JSON thing. We have learned the first two things. The JSON path count, so the number of nodes that are present here, that we know how to validate that. And JSON path match also, we have seen how can we uh, validate the values here, right? For any particular node, we can validate the values here. Now there are two things which are left. The first one is JSON path regex match, where we can use some regular expression to validate, and JSON path existence match. So these two will be seen after a short break. Let's take a short break of 5 minutes, and after that we'll see how to validate or use those two assertions.
Yeah, 5 minutes. Yeah. But
Hello.
Yes, I'm coming.
Yeah. So I'll start sharing my screen again. Uh, okay. Is my screen visible?
Yeah.
Okay. So are you finding it very complex?
Yes.
Okay. But this is actually not that complex. I mean, you're just watching it, and that's why it's looking like very complex to you. But
Yes.
once you try it from your end, no, so you'll feel comfortable. You'll feel a lot comfortable. You just
Okay.
need to do it by yourself.
There's
Once
no
you
written notes, nothing, like only arrows here and there, nothing. Like in a book, you can read the steps, but here, but for your explanation, I mean, there's nothing to read. It's just a slide, just is very minimal teaching.
Yeah, so for that, what you can do is you can refer to the recording. So I will recommend you that when you are doing the hands-on, just start playing the recording as well and follow the steps. So whatever step I am performing, just follow the step, pause the recording there, and follow that step. And you can also note down the step. What is the step-by-step approach? So that will help you, I guess.
You think so?
Yeah. So just follow the recording, and whatever I am doing, just follow the same thing. Follow the same thing and keep a note of the same steps. So in future, then you don't need to go to the recording. You can just follow the note you are making, and you can do it by yourself. And like it will just take 2-3 times. Once you are doing it 2-3 times by yourself, you don't need to see the notes as well, because this is very simple. I'm telling you, this is very simple. There is no rocket science here. You just need to, because all these details will be given to you, right? This
Mm.
endpoint, this WSDL, this WADL, all these things will be given to you. The only thing that you need to do is you need to put the things here, right? And then add the assertions, because from the testing perspective, this assertion is most important. Because whenever you will execute it, you will execute the test suite and all. So this is the thing which is going to test, because we as a tester, we need to do the test of this response. So if you are thinking that, okay, I need to make these details, I need to make these files or not, that is not the case. You don't need to create these files and all this JSON data, XML data. This you will get in the response itself. What you need to do is, rather than going and checking it manually, that okay, there are 6 user data here, so 1 2 3 4 5, no, you don't need to do that manually. You can just add these steps, add these assertions here, and this will actually check this automatically, right? So there are people who just go and validate that manually. But the thing is, here we have only 6 data. But when you'll be working on a big project, so there will be like 10,000, 15,000 data. So it's not possible for you to count manually, right? Is that possible? No.
Mm.
So if there are 10,000 user data here, it's not possible for you to count one by one manually.
Mm.
So at
Mm.
that time, this will actually help you to validate those things. You just give the JSON path there, and it will give you how many different those IDs are there, or how many different first names are there, how many different email IDs are there, how many different user IDs are there. Whether the first user detail contain that particular first name, that particular email, or that particular last name, or after, or whatever details that is coming from there, you can just validate that. So for that, these assertions are really required. So if you know how to add this assertion and all, so that is the main thing I'm trying to focus on. Otherwise, this JSON data and all this URL and all, that you are going to get the uh, from the project, from the developers. And the
Mm.
another thing is this. parameters, how to add this parameter. So this, I guess I had already shown you on the previous day, on the first day, but today also I'm going to show you how can we add this parameter. So if you see here, there are some post calls or say put call or patch calls where you need to provide these parameters. So these are the parameters. Say if you're trying to log in. So for that login, you need to pass the email ID and password, right? Because this when we try to log in, say Amazon.com, I'll just show you this as well. So when we are opening the Amazon.com and we are going to this sign in. So see, the URL is up to this. And whatever is mentioned after this question mark sign, these are the parameters, right? And when I'm giving this email ID and clicking on continue, this will be sent as the parameter. And this is your URL. So similarly, if you see here, this is your, so what is the URL? The total URL is requires.in/API/login, right? So this is your URL. And after that, the email ID and password what you are giving, so that you need to give as the parameter. So how can we add these parameters? That also you already know. We can add these parameters from here, right? We can add these parameters from here. Otherwise, you can just click here. So for the get methods, we normally don't have any particular parameter, but when we'll use the post call or put call or the batch call, that time we need to provide the parameters here. So I'll just show you how to add those parameters and all. Okay, so we were left with two different accessions. So I'll just go to accession and I'll click here, and then we want to check that whether this JSON path exists in the response or not. So till now what we have seen, the count of the JSON path, say ID. So how many times this ID is present in this response, that we are checking using the JSON path count, right? Then JSON path match. So what we are doing using the JSON path match? Using the JSON path match, we can validate that whether the value is matching or not. Whether the value for this first email is matching or not. Whether the value of this uh, uh, mail ID of the sixth user ID is matching or not. But what we will check now, whether this email actually exists or not, whether this ID actually exists or not, whether this per page actually exists or not. So we can add here, and I will give so simply total underscore pages. I want to check whether this response has this total underscore pages or not. I will test it. Okay, so I will select from the current and it is saying true. That means total underscore pages is present here. I will test it and yes, this is success. So I will save it. Another one I will do, say I want to validate the whether suppose so suppose there is something total here, right? But I want to see whether something called total one is there or not. Now, if I validate it, I select from current. See, this is giving invalid JSON path expression. So because this total one is not present, there is no node called total one here. So that's why it's giving you invalid JSON path expression. Okay. And now, if I give total, select from current, yes, this is true. This is present here. Similarly, suppose I want to validate whether so there is something called support here, right? If you go below, we have something called a support. And under support, we have two different nodes. One is URL and one is text, right? Suppose I want to validate whether we have this support dot text or not, right? I'll click on select from current. This is present, so this is true, and I will test it. Yes, it is success. So I will save it. So this is checking whether we have text under support or not. So whether this node actually present or not, that is checked by this JSON path existence. So are you able to understand the difference between these three assertion? First one is the JSON path count. So the details is description is also given here. So uses and JSON path expression to count the occurrences of an element applicable to any property containing JSON, right? Now JSON path existence uses and JSON path expression to select content from the target property and compares the result to an expected value applicable to any property containing JSON. And JSON path match uses and JSON path expression to existence of a node and compares the result to an expected value applicable to any property containing JSON. So the first one was for how many times that particular element is present. Then the JSON path existence, whether that particular element is actually present or not, that it will check, and the JSON path match will actually validate the value, whether the value is matching or not, right? Okay. Now the last one we have is JSON path regex match. Okay. So what is this? So suppose we want to validate that whether this first name or this last name contains only alphabets, or there are some digits present here as well. So the first name or last name shouldn't contain any digit there, right? The first name should not contain anything 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Or the last name should not contain 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. It should only contain the alphabet, whether it could be capital letters or it could be small letters, right? Okay, so that we can check actually using the regular expression, because see this this particular uh, node can contain several values. So today it is Eve, that tomorrow it's going to change, right? So you cannot give any particular value here. So that's why we will use the regular expression. So how am I going to use it? Say dot email. Okay, dot email, or say dot first underscore name. So whatever first name values are present here, that should contain only alphabets, right? So for that we need to write a regular expression here. What is that? It should contain the values from either capital A to small z, or else small a to small z, and this can contain any number of times. For that you need to give a star, right? And if I now select from current, it's giving me false, because JSON path expression I think I have given incorrectly. Yes, the JSON path expression I have given incorrectly. So what is the error here? The error is I need to give data. Say suppose I want to validate for the first user, and dot first underscore name. Now if I validate the same here, see it is giving me true. And if I test it, it says this is success, right? So that means the first user data dot first name, the first name should only have characters either from capital letter or from small letter. It can be any number of characters, that doesn't matter. but it shouldn't contain any digits, anything outside this capital letter and the small letter. Now you can validate it for any user, right? If you test it, success. If you test it for data 2, it's success. Test it for data, say 5, test success. Now say you are giving data 6 here. Okay, you are testing it and it is failing. Why is it failing? Any idea?
Maybe the name.
Sorry, your voice is not coming.
Maybe the name is. I don't know what data 6 is. There is a name there. I don't know why.
It's failing because there is nothing called data 6 here. There is only 6 user details here, right? And what I had shown you here, this starts from the 0. The count starts from the indexing count starts from 0.
Oh, okay. So there's
right?
no 6.
So there is no 6, correct. So if you give data 5, that will work because the 6 data is there. 6 first name is there. When you are writing data 5 dot first name, it is this one, this first name. So that's why when you test it, it is true, it is success. But if you give anything other than 0 to 5 here, say 10, there is no 11th user ID present here. That's why it will fail. Okay. You give data 5, pass. It's true. Okay. Now, say I want to see that this total, right? This total should contain only values from or only contain digits. That also we can check using the same assertion. I need to select this JSON path regular expression match. Select add. Yes.
Why can it not be in the count?
Sorry.
Why can it not be in the count? Because it's a number.
So count will check how many times this node is present. This total pages, how many times this is present. This won't check the value here.
Okay.
Okay. So now suppose I want to check the value of total, right? For that, I'm giving regular expression. The value should be between 1 to 9. And now if I check it, it will actually fail. The reason I'll tell you, this is coming false. Now the reason it is coming false is, what is the value that is coming in total? It is 12. But here it is failing because the regular expression says that the value should be in between 1 to 9.
Yeah.
The value is 12 here. So what we need to give is, we need to give a star here. So now when we give a star here, that means this can be anything, but it should contain only values from 1. So the digits should only contain the values from 1 to 9. If it contains any character, any special character, @ hash, so that will fail. Now if you select from current, it is true. So any value, any digits, if it's come here, it will get passed. Right? So see the difference. So now you can see, you can ask me that, okay, what if I add the JSON path match here? I can do that. I can add a JSON path match. I can give the value total here, and I can select from current, and this is giving me 12, right? So I can test it from here as well. So why I do need to use the regular expression? So the reason I need to use the regular expression is, here the value is constant. We are getting the 12 value only. But suppose we have a dynamic case where the value of this total will get changed, right? Whenever you are sending this request, suppose First time you are getting 12, second time you are getting 15, third time you are getting 18, next time you are getting 50. So people are adding things, and that's why the value of the total is getting changed every time. So at that time, if you use the assertion with this JSON path match, will that work? So because you need to give, you are hard coding the value here, right? You're hard coding the value 12 here. So next time, if it comes as 15, this particular assertion will fail, right? But that is not expected. The expected thing is, the validation that you need to do is whether this total should only contain digits or not. So to validate that, we need to use regular expression. So that's why whatever values it can have, if those contain only digit, then your assertion will get passed. So it can be 1000, it can be say 1500, it can be 1800. That doesn't matter. If the value changes, until and unless it contains any particular special character or any character, this particular assertion will get passed if you are using regular expression. So that is the use of regex. So these are the, primarily 4 different, JSON related assertion that is present here, which is required in case of REST APIs, which are giving you the JSON format response. And this is the XPath match. This we have tried for XML content, and this contains and not contains, we know whenever we use the contents, it will go through the whole response, and it will try to find that whether that value is present or not. Then we have also seen the compliance and status code. So here we have the invalid HTTP status code, and we have the valid HTTP status code. In case of SOAP, we have the SOAP response and SOAP request, so those also we can do. Apart from that, we have different security SLA script, but those are not required at your level. So these are for the security testing and all, but we are not concerned about that at this moment. Okay. So any query till now?
I don't know. I really don't.
Sorry?
Everything as you are explaining, I understand, but I don't know how I can.
Yeah, for that actually you need to do the hands-on, right? So once you will do the hands-on, you will go through the step-by-step approach. You see the recording, and at the same time you are doing the things by your own, so you will be able to understand it in a better way. Okay, so that's all I had for today's session. And if you don't have any query, so in that case, I guess we can wrap up for today. And if possible, like I would suggest you to do the hands-on. Start with the SOAP request, right? Start with the SOAP request and do the hands-on. See if you're able to at least create one request and get one response back and validate, add the assertions there or not. So if you are able to do at least once, then you will get some confidence. If you will just watch the recording, it's not going to help you. And another thing, don't lose your confidence, because these are some advanced steps. Initially in the interview, they won't ask you in detail, right? The main thing that they are going to ask you is from the manual testing concepts, the theoretical part, writing the test case and all. I had already told you this yesterday as well. So these are some of the advanced things which is good to know, right? So just do the hands-on. I guess if you do the hands-on, you'll be able to understand and do the things by your own.
Okay. Right.
Okay, then I think we are good to wrap up today's session.
Oh,
Let's meet tomorrow then. Thanks for joining. Have a good night. Bye.
you too. Have a nice day. Thank you. Bye.
Thank. Bye.